Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 15 of the Anime Banter podcast with your host, Turtle, Sean, and Mike. Thank you for joining us today. How are you guys doing?
Doing pretty well. No complaints here.
I mean, I can always complain, but it doesn't do any good. But I'm happy to be here because we're starting a whole new show, and I've never seen this before.
This is a show that's been on my watch list forever. I feel like you hear it from different people that it's really good, but it doesn't seem like it has hit the mainstream level yet.
Well, maybe we can change that.
It would be nice to raise some awareness about the show. I know absolutely nothing about it going into episode 1, besides this show's about Vikings.
That's all I knew.
Oh, and I also heard that it was potentially dark. And I'm like, okay. So we'll see, I guess.
After seeing the first 2 episodes, I would have to agree. I can see this getting very dark.
Before we jump into the show, which the new show we will be talking about is Vinland Saga, have you guys been playing any games or doing anything else lately?
Yeah, actually. Not a new game, but a friend of mine and I together are playing through the game Digimon World Next Order. Now, I will say that it's not a very good game. Honestly, it's not very good. I beat it on my own, but my friend and I played the original Digimon World on the PlayStation 1. Say, I don't know, 20 years ago. Make myself feel old. So we would play that game for hours on end, like a whole day. I would go there right after lunch, and we would just play for like 8 hours, and then and then I go home. So we thought it'd be fun to resurrect our love for the series and get together and play. And we logged about 11 hours on the game
Woo.
yesterday. It's kind of like a going back to our roots, and the nostalgia was fun. We realized how much trauma the first game gave us. Uh, in the game, Digimon have to poop. Yeah, I said it. Yeah, they have to. They actually have to
Hey,
have bowel movements.
everyone poops.
Yeah, and then like a little pink poop icon shows up above their head, and you have to run them to a bathroom. If you don't get to the bathroom on time, they just take a dump on the ground, and then it stays there the rest of the game to remind you of your mistakes.
It's like, how dare you not get your Digimon to the toilet? Shame. Shame. Shame.
That's exactly it. And as you may or may not know, Digimon started as a like a Gigapets Tamagotchi type of thing, where it was like a little handheld pet that you had in a device, and they tried to take elements of that and turn it into like a fighting video game. And the battle system was terrible, but when you have the nostalgia goggles, things aren't quite as bad usually. But yeah, the new game, yeah, it's really quite bad. But every life improvement that you wanted from the first one is kind of there in this one. So if you like the original Digimon World game, this game is very good. If you don't like the original Digimon World game, stick with the Digimon Cyber Sleuth games. I didn't play Digimon Survive yet, but I'm sure that one is probably better than Digimon World Next Order as well.
What if you have zero knowledge of Digimon?
Stay far away from Next Order. Like Digimon Cyber Sleuth, I tell you what, it was a really good Pokemon game. It's pretty much Pokemon, but with Digimon instead. And that game was really fun. So it's like a traditional JRPG with a fun story. But I would not start this with Digimon World Next Order. I would stay far away for anything that says Digimon World.
I think I actually had World as well, and I played maybe a couple hours and didn't like it and put it down and never touched it again. So
Yeah, that's what most right in the head sane people would do with that game. But
I remember it not being very good.
yeah, my friend and I, we're not right in the head, so I guess we like bad games sometimes. Who doesn't like a few bad games though? Guilty pleasures, am I right?
Absolutely.
You guys have a guilty pleasure game?
Not necessarily a game, but a movie.
What movie would that be?
The Room.
Oh, of course.
You're tearing me apart, Lisa!
I've actually never seen The Room.
How am I the only person on this podcast who has seen The Room?
I've seen pieces of it because Adult Swim used to play it, so I would catch random scenes, but then I would turn it off because it was bad. I didn't realize that it was going to become a so bad it's good but bad kind of movie.
Yeah, it's definitely a meme at this point.
Turtle, you had the chance to come see the 20th anniversary with us, and you bailed.
I know, I did. I'm honestly not that interested in watching it.
Wait, Turtle, do you have a guilty pleasure movie or game that's like it's bad but you just don't care because you love it?
Um, trying to think off the top of my head. I'm sure I do.
Yeah, I've got another one. The 1980s Transformers the movie. Uh, it's like in my top 5 favorite movies of all time. I love that movie, and I will admit it's not a very good movie, but I like
I
how cheesy it is.
like the Transformers were huge, and like I didn't really watch it growing up at all. I remember like years ago, I decided I wanted to look up the animated Transformers show, and of course, through very legal means, I was able to watch the show, and I also watched the movie. So at least I have seen that. It is weird and different and not great, but I can understand an appreciation for it because I thought the show was actually pretty decent.
Yeah, it has 80s cheese out the butt,
Oh yeah.
and but that's fun to me. Like it seemed like they were very self-aware what they were doing with how cheesy it was.
Isn't Weird Al in the soundtrack? Didn't he they took a couple of his songs in the
Yeah, play
soundtrack
the
or something?
song "Dare to Be Stupid."
Yeah, that's right.
It's a really good part of the movie. They're
And
all good parts of the movie.
oh, what's like the main theme song? The Touch by Stan Bush, is that it?
Yes, yeah, the
Yeah,
touch by Stan Bush. Yeah,
that song is absolute 80s cheese, and I love that song.
there's no song that is like that kind of like encapsulates the spirit of like 80s cheese than that song.
Oh yeah, it's perfect. I wouldn't change a thing.
No, I wouldn't either.
It's amazing.
And Vince DiCoola's soundtrack is also very good. Unicron Medley, very good song. But yeah, I don't want to take up the whole podcast here with our guilty pleasures. I guess we should maybe talk about Vinland Saga.
I did
It's a
not
good
hit
idea.
her. I did not. This is bullshit. I did not. Oh, hi, Mark. Your homework, the two of you, watch The Room for next episode.
Is it streaming anywhere?
Nope.
Gonna make
Uh,
this really hard.
well, yeah,
Got.
I'd say, is it out there on YouTube for free somewhere?
I doubt it.
Hmm.
A lot of small theaters will do like a screening every once in a while. They do a lot of interactive stuff. The fans will do a bunch of interactive stuff when it's playing. But if you buy stuff from Tommy's website, he'll send you an autographed picture with purchase.
Do you have one of those pictures?
I sure do.
Of course you do. Is it like framed and hanging up on the wall?
It should be.
Well, get on that, man.
I know. It's a small picture.
I was like, you need a gallery wall. You guys hear of like a gallery wall?
Yeah, when my wife and I first moved into our house, we had one. And then after we got married, we took the pictures down and replaced it with like wedding stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say it took all the fun like comic book art pictures down, replaced it with live, laugh, love signs. It's what the women do to us, right?
Let's say I have enough anime and game posters and things that I could cover an entire frickin' building.
And you're probably going to buy more at Teco.
I probably am. Speaking of Techo, everybody come to Techo.
Yeah, seriously, come visit us too. We're gonna be around at the Demon Files booth in the not Artist Alley, the dealer's room, actually, with dealer's table. July 20th through 23rd in Pittsburgh at the David L. Lawrence Convention Center. Please come to Teco. Come find us.
It's a great time.
Indeed.
It is.
I can't wait.
Today, we are talking about episodes 1 and 2 of Vinland Saga Season 1. For those who might not know what Vinland Saga is about, a young man named Thorfinn finds himself in a quest for revenge against his father's killer. Firstly indulged in the apparent greatness of war and honor, Thorfinn quickly changes as he endures having to survive alone, and then alongside the man he vows to kill, developing conflicting emotions toward the causality, of his past and present life. Vinland Saga can be viewed on Netflix for the dub and Crunchyroll for the sub.
That synopsis definitely delivered me a spoiler that I did not know was happening.
Yeah,
So,
same.
all
Same.
right.
Well,
That's
I
what
mean,
we get for reading it. I mean, you have to read the summary of the show, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
and I mean, at the end of season episode 2, we sort of figure out where this thing's going, and during the credits of the song, it's like, well, I could sort of see where things are going.
yeah, I definitely had that prediction as well at the end of episode 2. I'm like, oh, okay, this is gonna happen.
Episode 1, Somewhere Not Here. It was interesting on before we get too far in. Netflix, whenever it showed the title, had a different title than IMDb. I believe it was Somewhere Far From Here or something along those lines instead of Somewhere Not
Oh,
Here.
Didn't know about that.
did not either. Interesting.
And before we dive too far in, this episode actually begins the war arc of Vinland Saga, which will cover the entire first season. I was doing some digging, and it looks like there are 4 arcs that cover the manga for Vinland Saga. So season 1 is going to cover the entire first arc of the manga.
Do we know, is the manga done or is it still ongoing?
I don't know if it's done yet, or if I believe it's still ongoing, but and the creator of the manga said he expects it to be over 1,000 pages and 50 chapters long.
Okay.
So I'm not
Wow.
sure if he's on arc 3 or arc 4, if the creator is on arc 3 or arc 4 currently.
More arcs, more anime. Gimme.
Yeah. And the fact that he has a plan. He's like, it's gonna end here. I know what the story is. That's a good thing too. He knows exactly what he wants to do and what he wants to say and how he's gonna do it. So
I like an author with a clear vision of where they want to end up.
yeah, for sure. It's pretty rare that find someone who flies by the seat of their pants and is able to deliver something as incredible as Dragon Ball Z.
Honestly, some of my favorite TV shows are those that have like before season 1 even starts, they know, okay, this show is going to last 3 seasons, 5 seasons, whatever. But they know the start point, they know the end point, and they're not going to let it get drawn out just for money, ad revenue, etc. Like we're ending it right now, right here.
Oh, in the shows that do that, by the way, you can usually tell when exactly like that line was, and when they
Yeah.
started just winging it. Uh,
You mean like The Walking Dead?
Not sure. Haven't watched more than the first season of Walking Dead,
Oh,
unfortunately. But for me, my example was going to be Supernatural. After season 5, there was a sharp decline in quality.
but like I love Ted Lasso, and from the beginning they knew that was going to be 3 seasons.
Yeah.
Is third season the final season?
Yes, there might be some spin-offs, but the main Ted Lasso show is done.
Oh, my Apple TV subscription ran out when I was like halfway through season 3, and I haven't renewed it. I guess I should finish that.
Also, during this show, there are, at least in this first episode, there are some time jumps. So I'm going to state what year we are in whenever a time frame is shown, just so we can stay on the straight and narrow for the timeline. So the show opens. We are in the year 987. And what an epic opening to the show. Like, some of the past shows we've watched have had some slow starts to episode 1. And Vinland Saga is just like, nope, here you go. Violence, blood, we're punching you in the mouth with it. Get ready because this is what this show's going to be. And I loved it.
Vikings doing Viking things.
Yeah, it definitely felt like hyper masculine and like extremely intense. And I was like, oh boy, like I'm getting some berserk vibes here, and I'm down with it. Let's do it.
I loved how the flashback of Thor's was disrupted by the fight. Like, he was off in La La Land, like, oh, whatever. This is cool. It's very peaceful, very colorful. And he, like, you hear a metallic thud, and you're like, oh, he must have hit, like, a bear trap or something on the ground. Nope. Dead dude's helmet.
Oh, quick point about when he's starting to like daydream and sees like the nice place. You know what I mean? Like the very peaceful place. Did anyone else get like Gladiator vibes? This movie Gladiator. You guys see that one?
It's been a while.
I
Yeah, there's like
actually
this.
have not seen that one.
Yeah, there's like the scene where Russell Crowe's character, whose name I can't remember, like his wife and child are dead, and in his mind he can see them in like a beautiful field. Yeah, it's almost like is that heaven?
I was gonna say because this isn't the only time we see this area during these episodes, and I know at one point he called it Vinland, but to me it almost felt like it was more of Valhalla because it was very sparse, very calm. It felt to me
Yeah.
it was very heavenly. So, and we all know how Vikings want to get to Valhalla.
Well, it's like the skipping ahead a little bit. The slave he saw the same place, didn't he?
He did.
Yeah.
And you know they talk about Vinland, and the way Leaf described Vinland is the same paradise. So to them, in tales of old, there were always stories about like a paradise, right? Like an El Dorado, right? Like a city of gold, or I don't know, just like a lot of cultures have a place of paradise, and sometimes that place of paradise is also thought of as maybe their afterlife. So is Vinland really a paradise that everyone's chalking it up to be? I mean, considering it's Canada, I would say probably not. But
Blame Canada. Blame Canada.
There you
but
go.
it's but to them, I guess that this is Vinland Saga's heaven. I guess kind of is this field.
So we're back to being on the boat. And can I just take a second to say how I love there are two characters named Thor in some way on this boat standing next to each other? You have Thor's the main fighter, and then you have Thor Kell, the blonde guy he's talking to.
I mean, who doesn't like Thor?
Yeah, you want your kid to be a warrior, right? Name him Thor.
And let's talk about how strong Thor's is. He's like, all right, I'll go over on that boat and take care of business. And Thor Kell's like, how you plan on doing that? And he just jumps and he starts running through enemies. And to me, it felt like a video game where you have your main character and he's just running through the jabroni ads to get to the main villain, and it's like, get out of my way. I'm overpowered. Like towards the end of a video game where you're just so OP that you're just one shotting things trying to get to the end. It's just like move, get dead, 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 dead.
Or like a Dynasty Warriors game where it's you versus like hundreds of generic dudes that you can mow down with a single
Yeah,
attack.
honest. Yeah, that's sort of what I was thinking. Yeah,
That's how strong Thor is. He's a Dynasty Warriors character.
and like the dude gets shot by an arrow and doesn't even flinch.
Yeah, man, right in the shoulder, and he's like, man, whatever.
Also, I love how that arrow just sort of disappeared whenever he jumped into the water.
I didn't think about that till
I
now, but
didn't think
yeah.
about that either. Yeah.
It's like he was tackling that guy, arrows in, arrow like they're over the board, arrows still in. They hit the water. What happened to the arrow?
Well, if you break the stick and leave the blade in, I think the way a lot of arrows are designed is that it actually causes more damage to take them out.
Yes,
So, like, if you try to remove it in battle, you're just gonna bleed out probably. So I'm just gonna say broke the stick,
that works.
or the animators forgot about it.
That's probably the real answer.
Yeah.
The real answer.
Let's go with my badass theory is Thor's cared so little about the arrow, it just disappeared.
So in the water, Thor's kills another man, and then he drops his sword and lets his sword fall to the bottom of the ocean, and he swims away, and he shows up on the beach, and we see the background. All the boats are on fire, and we get the opening title screen. Just that background of all the boats on fire was so well done, like looking. I really enjoyed that art piece.
Really good visual.
So far, so good.
So now we are at the opening title screen, and let's kick it over to Turtle for our some information about our opening credit song.
Yeah, so the opening song for this season one so far, this is called Mukanjo, Mukanjo, by the band Survive Said the Prophet. And I guess Mukanjo translates to emotionless, which is actually like a perfect song title for this show. You're a Viking warrior, you're slaying endless amount of enemies. That can definitely put you in a very emotionless, blank kind of state where you're just there to kill. So I thought it was a very appropriate name. And this song is like really metal, like really metal. by the end of the song, they go full screamo mode with the lyrics and everything, and it's a cool song. I really like it. I'm not a big fan of the band name though. I don't know. That just sounds really bland and generic to me. Just random words thrown together that mean absolutely nothing. But the song is cool. Check it out.
I loved this opening song. Like, I know we all loved the Trigun Stampede opening, but man, like this song fits the Viking theme so well. Like when you hear Viking, you think metal, you hear things yelling and screaming and just like hard, like you want to run, like you want to run through a wall, pretty much.
Yeah.
And when I heard this song, I'm like, yeah, let's fucking go, let's do this.
I mean, there is a subgenre of metal called Viking metal, so I mean it just fits, and it's a good song, and it does fit perfectly. The visuals, the animation's really cool. So yeah, check it out.
I texted a friend who's not super into anime. He has a very limited anime background. But I texted him like, dude, you need to listen to this song because it is right up your alley. So hopefully he takes my advice and checks it out.
I actually was thinking about this one, and it actually does kind of seem like the kind of show that people who don't like anime may actually like.
Yeah,
I could
Um,
definitely see that because there's such a large fan base for Viking things.
and seems really grounded in realism, where you don't have like people flying through the air shooting energy balls. It's based on like Vikings, like real Vikings, on how life was. So I think a lot of people could get into the show because of that, because it's not too out there. It's very grounded, very real.
and
You're
I've never seen the show Vikings.
I haven't either, and I've had a couple of guys that I play softball with. They all are surprised I never watch it because they're like, "You would love this show."
Yeah, I was told the same thing, and I watched like half the first episode. And I couldn't get into it really, but you got to give things more than one episode a chance.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That show is definitely on my watch list. But yeah, I definitely don't think we'll be seeing this isn't even my final form in this anime.
No, definitely not.
I mean, I could be wrong, but it feels very grounded.
Now you'll see some ridiculous stuff like someone getting shot with an arrow and pretending they don't feel it. You get stuff like that, but yeah, like you said,
Yeah,
no one's gonna be flying through the air like T posing, blasting beams out of his hands or something. I don't know.
there's not gonna be aliens or anything.
Yeah, that would be quite a twist.
No laser beams, sorry.
Nice beams.
Laser beams!
The year is now 1002. We are 15 years after the opening sequence. Guess what? We have another Thor. This time it is young Thorfinn, who we learn is the son of Thor's. So we are now up to 3 Thors in this show. Just going to keep a running tally of that.
Yeah, Thor counter is 3.
Thorfinn is asked to do some chores around the farm, milk the cows, feed the sheep. He fetches some water, and he does all his tasks. And you could tell he's just like, well, whatever. Yeah, I'm a 6-year-old boy. I'll do whatever I need to do. But he's very excited when it comes to Viking story time, which is what I'm going to call the Leif Erikson stories around the fire. Viking story time. It was also really cool to like have a real like historical figure as a character in this show in Leif Erikson.
I was very surprised they did it. I'm not mad that they did though. It's
Same.
kind of cool.
Like you figure, okay, though maybe they would change the name a little bit instead of like Leif Erikson, Leif Eriks or Leifs Erikson or something.
I definitely don't know history, so I was unaware that this is a real character, or a real person, I should say.
So he's telling the children of his travels and how he found this new land and he called it Vinland. And I'm like, he said it. He said the thing. He said the name of the show.
Name drop.
So the children are loving the stories. And when he's talking about the natives, was I the only one wondering how much of that story was true and how much of it was, nah, you're just making this G-rated. We all know you really killed those natives.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. He's like, they gifted me this hat, and I'm like, I have a funny feeling they did not gift him that.
They gifted me this hat and this pipe.
Even though we couldn't speak the same language.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not. I'm a little worried what this series is gonna do down the line. if it's called Vinland Saga, and if our main characters get to Vinland, I'm like, oh man. See, it's made by like in Japan. So in Japan, they didn't have the history of the atrocities we committed as a nation, and well, I guess in our forefathers in Europe and Norway, I guess. The point is, the natives to the Americas were not treated well by people from Europe, and I am very worried that there's gonna be like an arc about that, and I don't know if I'm gonna want to watch that honestly. So I guess we'll see when we get to it.
So Thor's arrives for story time, and he's just sort of hanging out in the background. And about when he shows up is when some of the kids start calling Leif out, and it's like, oh, come on, your story's a bunch of BS. Like, you're a liar. You're not a warrior. All your stories are made up gibberish. And Leif is like, Thor's, back me up on this. Come on, you know I'm telling the truth.
That did crack me up though. I like Leaf. I like him a lot.
I have a feeling I'm gonna really like his character, and naturally, he's the old man pervert of the show because they all need one.
Yeah, yeah, they do.
Because he tries to Yova, Thorfinn's sister, is like, "Oh, I'm so cold," and Leif is like, "Oh, come here, honey, I'll warm you up." It's like, and I love how even she's like, "Shut up, you old pervert."
There is always one, isn't there?
How
So,
young? How young do you think Thor's daughter is?
I bet you she's
She's like a
14,
teenager.
15.
That's what
Yeah,
I was
I bet
thinking
I have a
too.
feeling she like was born right around whenever he swam away from the fight 15 years ago.
Yeah.
That makes sense because his vision, I assume it was his wife holding her, the baby. So, yeah, she probably is about 15.
I'm also wondering if the pervert thing was just the studio, okay, we'll do one just to like make you think we're going to have an old timey pervert, and Yova shutting him down real quick is just like, okay, we did it once, washing our hands, we're moving on to the good shit now.
Yeah, also, comedic relief is important.
Oh, absolutely. And especially in a show like this.
Yeah, so if Leaf is our comedic relief, then I like him even more.
Well, I love how even the children are like, "You're not an adult." They just say you're a child with a kid with hair on your lip. So Thorfinn goes to bed, and I just love how his dream is him sailing the seven seas and trying to be this great Viking warrior. And we see the sea monster, and it starts choking Thorfinn. And like we cut to real life, and he's being choked out, and it's actually his sister Yova in bed with him, with her arm wrapped around his throat.
Yeah, I feel like the sister also provides some level of comic relief in this episode.
Yeah, she seems very grounded. I think I like her a lot so far. She had some pretty funny lines too, I thought.
So we're now in the next day or a couple days later, whatever it might be. And Thorfinn is again hanging out with Leif. And Thorfinn asks Leif, "Hey, how much of your story really is true? Like, is it all true? Is it not true?" And like, Thorfinn's like, "Take me with you. I want to go sailing to see Vinland." Thorfinn's like, "Well, I don't believe it until I see it." And Leif is like, "Seeing is not believing. And if you really want to go sail, ask your dad. There's the warship right there. Go out with him." Thorfinn's like, "Okay, well, how did we come to this land?" And Leif tells Thorfinn all about how their ancestors were originally from Norway until Harold, which I had to stop when he said Harold. I'm like, no, like, really? Harold? Like, that's the name we're going with? And then I'm like, nope, okay. I did some digging, and sure enough, Harold came and conquered Norway. And Harold became the first king of Norway and said either submit or flee. And Leif tells Thorfinn that their ancestors fled Norway and came here, which really upsets Thorfinn. He's like, "You're a liar. You're my father and my ancestors would never run. You're a big phony, and all the kids were right. You're just a big old fat liar."
Well, no kid wants to hear that their ancestors are quote unquote cowards, though. I don't know if the only option is to run or face certain death. I'm not so sure how much it's cowardice and
And Thorfinn also seems very like for being 6, he is very into the Viking lifestyle. Like he wants to sail, he wants to fight, he wants to do all these things for being a 6-year-old. And I'm sure he looks up to his father immensely. So to hear that his father ran away and like didn't fight, I'm sure is a big hit of betrayal and like, no, my father would never do that. He's perfect. My father is my idol and I look up to him and there's no way. Like nobody can be right about that. I know my father.
Yeah, he what's it's like kids and superheroes, right? You know, kids who want to play soldier, pretend soldier, right? Kids who want to play superhero. It's you know, you read stories, your parents tell you stories, your friends talk about it, and you want to be it, you know. But when I was in preschool, every kid wanted to be a Power Ranger. But what if they came to you and told you your dad was a Power Ranger, like a real one? And you're like, whoa, crap. Well, now I want to be a Power Ranger. You know, like I don't know. Just a lot of cultures, especially back then, they glorified violence because you treated um, the people who fought were heroes.
So at one point we see a slave walking in the snow, just sort of wandering aimlessly. And we see Thor's and his daughter Yova working on the roof of the house, knocking snow off. And Yova's like, why can't we just buy a slave to do this? Like, be like everyone else. And Thor's like, no, we do it our way. And Yova slips off the roof and falls and finds that the slave wandering in the forest in the snowstorm fell at their doorstep.
I lost my mind when she's like, "Come on, Dad, can't we just buy a slave?" I was like, "What? Excuse me, are these subtitles correct? Is there an issue in translation?" Oh no, they meant it. Okay.
Yeah, I thought that was a little bizarre. It's like, what?
Well, hey, I mean, that might. I guess it's historically. I don't know how historically accurate this is. I may do some research on it to see what people have to say about it.
Yeah, I am definitely not a history buff by any means.
And I certainly know the past of Vikings and slavery, though it wouldn't surprise me because they were pretty brutal people.
Yeah, I mean, I can believe it that they had slaves. But yeah, that shocked me too. I wasn't ready for that. I was like, really?
So they bring the runaway slave inside, and Thor's is trying to revive him. Like, he asks Helga, his wife, to throw more wood on the fire and to boil some water. And he's starting to do CPR, and he's going so hard that you see sweat falling off him onto the ground, which that right there was really well animated. Like, just to see him sweating more and more profusely and the sweat running off him was really well done. I feel like that's something we don't really see a lot in shows. The runaway slave is revived, obviously very weak, and we learn that the runaway slave is from Halfdan's estate. And it's gonna take so much of me to not call him Halfdan.
Wait, is it not pronounced Halfdan?
Nope, it's Halfdan.
Oh man, yeah. I just read the subtitles because I was watching the subtitle version. I just read Halfdan and I was like, this is a really funny name.
Nope,
Yeah,
it's Halfdan.
I hope
So
he's not in the series much more.
I don't know. He seems pretty bitchin' that he might be.
Yeah, you got that chain.
Yeah. So naturally, the slave lets out that he's from Halfdan's estate, and on cue, Halfdan and his men show up.
Of course.
Oh, I've been summoned. Someone said my name. A slave of mine has said my name. I better arrive with my crew. The villagers come and try and get Thor's to let him know about Halfdan showing up, and Leif is trying to keep the peace and trying to stall Halfdan. And we're at the beach, and one of the villagers starts going at it with one of Halfdan's men. You cut off my arm. Yeah, because you cut off my older brother's leg, and he'll never walk again. And it seems like they're ready to fight. And Halfdan, he has this whole speech about about chains and how the chain is the law of command and yada yada yada. It's like, all right, dude, that's a little weird way to see a chain.
Yeah, I didn't. I was like, what? This dude just spewing nonsense, but that's fine. He's a cool character who just you know beats people with chains and stuff.
I was gonna say, whenever he told his own man to stand down, and then threw his chain out and naturally wrapped it around his head, and just like pulled it back. That scene was absolutely brutal. You see all the hair and the skin and the blood like on the links of the chain, and I'm like, oh, holy shit!
Yeah, I was like, oh, it's gonna be this kind of show. Okay.
Like I honestly thought the dude would just be dead, and then you see the guy, and he's just like crying in pain, with like marks all over his face where the chain was, and you're like, oh, he's still alive.
Yeah, I thought at first like he ripped his head off or something, but then they show the scene where he's all like mangled and still alive. I was like, wow, okay, that's the point where like the beginning up until now, you have the fight scenes, you see some blood and some dismemberment, and you're in a war. This is the scene where I was like, this is going to be a very violent show.
So we're back at the cabin, and Thors tells the slave that he can come to paradise with them, to Vinland. And the slave starts having visions. He's like, oh, Vinland, that's what I just saw. And then the door is pretty much kicked open, and Halfdan shows up. And clearly you can tell that Halfdan has some sort of respect for Thors. He apologizes for barging in, like, oh, I'm sorry for the intrusion, like, just looking for my runaway slave, like, not looking to get in a fight or anything. Like, clearly he has some level of respect for Thors.
Hey, Thor's just gonna grab my slave and go.
Oh, you found him for me? All right, thanks, buddy. See you later. And he even like will negotiate with Thors when Thors tries to buy the slave off of Halfdan. Like it wasn't like a no, either I'm taking him or I'm taking like one of your daughter or I'm taking like I'm killing your villagers. Like Halfdan got way more than he should have for this runaway slave, and he was very calm in the negotiation. Like clearly there was some level of respect between the two.
Yeah, I feel like Halton was annoyed with it, but then he got all the sheep and he's like, guess it was a good deal after all. All right, fine. And then the slave just dies in the next frame.
And Yilva is all crying and sad, and Thorfinn's like, "Are you sad?" And she's like, "What gave that away, you idiot?"
She's like, yeah, you gave away like 8 sheep.
Yeah, that's like gold for them. So I guess I'd be upset too, but
I mean, Halfdan said he paid 2 to buy the man originally,
yeah. And then he got 8 to sell him off when he was like on death's door.
and Halfdan got to pick which 8. It wasn't like he got 8 sickly ones.
Yeah.
Oh, he got the cream of the crop.
The cream rises to the top. Ooh, yeah. So Thor's is burying the slave, and we see a man on a boat, and it's like, all right, well, who is this man? And then the episode ends with a shot of Thor's chest, which I'm assuming is from his Viking days. And I just love that foreshadowing. It's like, all right, warship, we see some warriors rowing. We're assuming it's towards Thor's, and then we see Thor's chest, in which we assume holds all of his Viking gear.
Yeah, I gotta say, I think the show is doing a good job at like foreshadowing what's to come and doing it very subtly. Because they show the chest, and you're like, okay, this is Thor's past, and that's going to catch up with him, which we'll see in episode 2. And then episode 2 does some foreshadowing, which I assume is going to lead into episode 3. So I got to pay a little bit more attention as I'm watching for things in the background and things they're going to point to that are going to lead to something else later on.
So that concludes episode 1. Turtle, do you want to talk about the end credit song?
Yeah, so the end credits song is called Torches, and it's by the singer and songwriter Aimer, Aimer. I don't know if it's Aimer or Amir. It's a pop song, but it has a very somber and kind of a sadness feel to it, which to me is very appropriate for this show. And I feel like once we get into the show, like farther into the show, this is going to be very appropriate because I think we're going to hit some very depressing stuff in this show. It's going to get very, very dark. I feel like anyone can die at any moment. So it's going to suck to get attached to a character and fear for the entire show that they're going to get killed off at any moment. So it's a pretty song, but it makes me worried for what's to come.
I gotta say, I really wasn't feeling this song nearly as much as the opening credit song.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely understand that. I don't. This isn't. I'm not saying like this ending is my favorite song, but I just felt like the somberness of it was very appropriate for a show about Vikings who kill everything.
And now it is time for Mike's Beer of the Week. This week's beer is the Founders All Day West Coast Session IPA. Founders is located in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and the All Day line has really expanded over the last couple of years. Originally, it was just the All Day IPA, and now they have the All Day IPA, the All Day Vacay, the All Day Haze, the All Day Crimson Sky, the All Day Chill Day, and the All Day West Coast. All of these beers are session IPAs. Session IPAs are very similar to regular IPAs with the hops and everything, but they're just on a much lower alcohol content. So, for reference, the All Day West Coast is a 4.7% beer. So, it's slightly more than your Bud Light, Coors Light, Miller Lights, but it's still a beer that you can hang out on the beach or just doing yard work all day. You could drink these beers all day without being worried about, oh man, these are 7%. I'm going to get really, really drunk off these and have a really bad hangover. Like, you can drink like 4 or 5 of these and not be in as bad of a shape as 4 or 5 regular IPAs. It's the whole session term comes from, oh, it's a drinking session. But I really enjoyed this beer. It was super smooth, and I could definitely, no pun intended, with it being a session IPA, drink these all day. I want to give a shout out to my buddy Lee for letting me drink a couple of these while we were playing Magic the one night. So, Lee, thanks again for letting me drink these. The Untapped average rating is a 3.66, and I give it a 3.75. Episode 2, Sword. So the narrator, which we really didn't talk about the narrator in episode 1, and it seems like the narrator will be a running character in this show, whether it be talking at the beginning of each episode or just providing information as it is necessary during the show. So the narrator tells us that Vikings always bathe on Saturdays. The English found out about this and planned an attack and killed a group of Vikings. And I just love how the animation, they're like, oh yeah, we're bathing. And the English just sneak up and kill the dude butt ass naked. And I'm like, those bastards killed the man. He didn't even have any clothes on.
Rude and disrespectful, man.
It was super brutal.
And not only did they kill all the men, but also all the women and children.
That's low. That's very low. Damn those English.
I love this next scene where all the kids are playing war. They're losing limbs and acting like they're dead and everything. It really reminded me of like playing Nerf guns as a kid. It's like,
Oh
oh,
yeah.
I shot you in the arm. You don't have your left arm anymore. Oh, you got shot in the leg. You have to hop around the battlefield now.
Yeah, definitely. That maybe had some flashbacks to those moments growing up.
Yeah, some larpers, you know. I'm kidding. It's just kids playing. It's just kids playing. But you know that they have those wooden swords, and I don't know if you ever had this when you play as a kid, and you're swinging a stick around. Your parents are always like, "Yo, someone's gonna lose an eye, right?"
Yeah.
I mean, some
So
of the thuds when with those wooden sticks sounded really painful. Like at least the spears had like looked like wrapped ends to them.
yeah, it
Like they
still would
were,
have hurt, but like,
yes.
just hurt.
Yeah,
Yeah. Not like
it
puncture
was
skin or anything.
some sort of ball with cloth around it. It wasn't just straight up wood.
The swords, though, oh my gosh, you get whacked in the head with one of those, you need stitches.
I was gonna say, I'm surprised some of those kids didn't get concussed.
Mm-hmm.
We learned Thorfinn is always one of the first ones killed, and his friend Faxi is also one of the first ones killed. And Thorfinn's talking, and Faxi's like, "Hey, dead bodies aren't supposed to talk." And he's like, "Well, at least when I die, I get to go to Valhalla, and I can eat meat every day." I'm like, that's the dream, meat every day.
Yeah, we're spoiled in America here. We're just like, I get to eat meat every day. I don't even have to die.
And Thorfinn's like, "Faxi, you have to be a great warrior to go to Valhalla." And then he's like, I wonder if my mom and my sister will go to Valhalla, thinking that they're not great warriors. It's like, kid, they are. They may not be warriors in the way you're thinking.
Yeah.
So Leif shows up, and he's like, you two died again. Dying in the snow is a good way to catch a cold. Thorfinn and Faxi decide to follow Leif to his ship, And Leif tells Thorfinn, "Hey, I'm sailing to Norway." And Thorfinn's like, "Oh, take me with you. I'll go. Let me go with you. It's all good and great." Like, and Leif is like, "Nah, I don't have enough space on the ship, and I'm going to Norway to do some trading. Like, you stay here. If you really want to sail, talk to your father." So again, it's just interesting to see how like Thorfinn is so gung ho about for being a 6-year-old getting to live the Viking lifestyle.
Yeah, he's definitely way into that. So this is, again, I think this is foreshadowing to when we see farther down the timeline what Thorfinn is going to grow into as an adult. I'm curious to see where this goes, but he's way into the Viking life here.
Leif tells Thorfinn, "Hey, go get your father for me. Tell him a warship is on the horizon, a big one." And next we see Thor's working in a blacksmith shop, and he's trying to fix a bowl. And he's like, "Oh, I definitely got it this time, master. I definitely fixed the bowl." And the master's like, "All right, well, let's put some water in it." And it just starts leaking everywhere. And I just start laughing my ass off because here's what we've seen has been a great warrior, like can kill very easily, very well respected in the village. Like people see him as the village leader. This man, it seems like everything comes so easy to this man. And then here he is working on a bull in a blacksmith shop, and he can't do it at all.
Well, nobody's good at everything.
No, absolutely. But it was just cool to actually see
They're
at this
humanizing
point that yeah,
Thor's.
yeah, seeing
Yeah,
him
he's
be
not a mortal
human and
god.
not like being oh he's great at everything and he could fight like with one arm and he could fight with his eyes closed and everything's great with Thor's like and the other apprentices even like oh you're probably using too much horse.
Yeah, and you look at him standing there like totally like ripped, you know, and you're like, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. So Thorfinn runs past Thor's originally and Thor's like hey I'm over here. It's like oh sorry. Anyways, Leif wanted me to tell you there's a warship here, a big one. So Thor's goes to the beach, and we see the beach lined with Vikings. And the man we saw at the end of episode 1 comes off the boat, takes his helmet off, and they all bow to Thor's. And we learn that the name of the man is Floki. And we learn that the two of them used to fight together. They were in the same Viking clan, troop, whatever you want to call it, and that Floki is here to get the band back together, even the deserters, this time for the music. But this everything with Floki and Thor's was very interesting because it shows how little the villagers know about Thor's. They're all shocked to see Floki and the his troops bowing to Thor's. Floki calls Thor's a hero at one point, catching Thorfinn off guard. He's like, "My dad a hero? No, like clearly this must be a different Thor's. This can't be my dad." All this talk and everyone's like, "Really? Our Thor's?" And then Floki tells Thor's about the English attack and that they are going to war. And all the eavesdroppers seem very excited about the prospect of war.
Yeah, let's. I want to take a second and talk about that. Everyone who goes with Thor is going to die.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
that's
absolutely. I'm like when they were like shown in their Viking armor, I'm like, this is like some low rent armor. Like these villagers are going to get absolutely slaughtered, aren't they?
They're pretty much LARPing Vikings. You know what I mean? They're just like it's like they're playing pretend.
yeah.
You know, because they'd heard all the stories and they're like, yeah, my great grandfather's armor, you know, or my grandfather's armor or whatever, right? It's like they have this 50-year-old armor, and you know, they've never seriously swung a sword. Never actually tried to kill a person before. They played their like war games, you know, here on the island, but they never seen real combat. One of those men with the axe could kill like 5 of these people easily,
Oh, for sure.
except for Thor's, of course, who would kill them all.
And I mean, even the villagers are like, they're like even better off looking than Halfdan's Vikings. So it's like, okay, you have Floki's got like just thinking out loud. It's like, okay, you have Floki's Vikings, top of the food chain, like they look legit. We haven't seen Halfdan's guys in full gear, but clearly they look better than Thor's villagers in their gear.
I can
But not
definitely see like in episode 3 the war is going to happen. I'm guessing, and the villagers are going to quickly realize that their fantasy of them being heroes is not going to work out so well for them, and I think they're going to easily be overpowered by everything else going on.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to like seeing these people who are really excited get murdered.
Yeah.
I was gonna say it seems like Thor's is like very hesitant. He's like, "No, we're not doing it. We're not joining you. Like, we're far away from that. Like, we're at the edge of the world. Like, nothing's going to come to our village." And Floki's like, "Look, either you fight or something bad is going to happen," alluding to that his crew is going to kill everyone in the village because he can't go back to his leader empty-handed.
So Thor's really only has one choice.
Floki's leaving and saying how okay, we're off to war. Thor's will be bringing one patrol ship with the best warriors in the village. Where it's like okay, well, who are these warriors? Because Thor's is jacked to the nines, but like all these other villagers are very scrawny, even compared to like anyone else we have seen in this show. But I just loved the visual of after the declaration of war, all the villagers are so ecstatic about the idea of going to war. Like they're jumping, the one guy's throwing his kid up in the air. We see an old man who's pretty much crying tears of joy saying it's been decades. Like everyone is so excited about it. And then we pan over to Thor's and he just has his head down and we see Leif, and Leif just sees Thor's walking off, pretty much defeated. Like his head is down, he's walking a walk of shame. Like I can't believe I let this happen to my villagers.
You imagine he feels a pretty extreme amount of guilt about this because he's like, man, if I had never like come to this village, really, they'd all be living in peace. I don't know. It's not going to be okay.
No, I really feel for Thor's here because it's definitely not going to be okay. But I mean, he really only had one choice because I mean, if he says no, they're going to come for the village, and he can protect himself and maybe his family, but not the whole village. So he really only has one choice but to go to war, and most of the young men from the village are going to go with him because they think it's going to be an easy victory, or their glorified stories come true, and I don't think that's going to happen.
And you could really see how much the declaration of war has affected Thorfinn. We're once again in the play war, and he is like doing really well. He's killing. He's in quotation marks killing the other kids. He's jumping all over the place, dodging attacks, and then we see that he doesn't follow the rules. Like the spearmen go in and they kill Thorfinn, and he's like, "No, I don't care. I'm gonna keep attacking you. Screw you guys. Like this is war, and I'm going all out." And we learn that Thorfinn broke one of the kids' arms, and Thor's is surprised that it was Thorfinn who did it. Thor's is trying to apologize, like, and other dad's like, no, it's all good. Like, that's just kids being kids. And man, Thorfinn's going to be really special. He's only 6 and he's going against 10 and 11-year-olds and he's holding his own. The guy is obviously trying to pay it as a compliment, and Thor's does not see it that way at all.
Yeah. At the same time, by the way, is this the first time we hear what Thorfinn's age is?
Yes.
When I heard he was 6, I looked at him and I was like, I don't know. He looks like he's at least 10. That's anime.
That's what I thought too. I'm like, oh, okay, this kid's definitely like 8 to 10. And when they were like 6, I'm like, bullshit, he's 6.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. Yeah, especially 6 taking on 10-year-olds. I'm like, yeah, that's not. I don't know any 6-year-old who could take on 10-year-olds.
No.
Like, well, I didn't know anyone who was the son of Thor's though.
I mean, Thor's is a big guy.
Yeah, he is.
So Thorfinn runs home and he throws his wooden sword and wooden shield on the ground. And Yova's like, pick this stuff up or I'm throwing it away. And he's like, good, throw it away. I don't care anymore. And he's rummaging in the storage closet and he finds Thor's old chest. Legendary loot drop!
Woo woo.
And he opens the chest to see all of Thor's gear, his armor, his swords, his daggers, everything. And he unsheaths the blade and he just stares at it almost in a romantic like look. Like we get the light hitting off it and it's reflecting onto his face, and he's just sort of in awe of the blade.
Totally mesmerized by it.
So Thorfinn's just in awe of this blade, and Thor's walks in, and the dude just palms the blade, like to the point where he starts bleeding.
I hate when people do stuff like that in anime and movies and stuff. We're watching Game of Thrones and having Khal Drogo just like pull a guy's blade into him and get stabbed by it.
And
And then
like
he
the
died of an infection later. And I'm like, this is the most realistic version I've ever seen of someone like purposely getting cut in media because it's stupid.
and like the dude completely no sells it. It's like, I'm sorry, if I'm holding a blade and I'm starting to bleed, I'm going to be wincing in pain.
Man just doesn't feel pain.
No,
Period.
no,
I mean, he got shot with that arrow before and nothing, so
true. But I absolutely loved the conversation between Thor's and Thorfinn in regards to enemies. I'm using enemies in quotation marks because Thorfinn is so ready to go to war because he wants to kill the enemies, and Thorfinn's like, "Who are your enemies?" He's like, "Our enemies, obviously. Like, you have enemies." And I just love how Thor's is like, "You don't have enemies. No one has any enemies, and there is no one it is ever okay to hurt." More people in the real world need to listen to Thor's speech when it comes to enemies.
oh my goodness, yes.
It
This
was a
was a
really, really good speech.
this was a great moment in the show.
Yeah, I absolutely loved that speech. It's like, yeah, it like, especially in the world today, it really hits home. Thor's is getting ready to take off to war, and he looks at Helga and he's like, "Please watch over Thorfinn." And it's not, "Oh, watch over Thorfinn and Yova." It's watch over Thorfinn because Thor's knows what is going on in Thorfinn's head, and he can already tell the trouble that Thorfinn can be. He obviously sees a lot of his younger self in Thorfinn.
And 6 years old is a really impressionable time. Like, he knows if something happens to him now, like Thor's does. He's like, if something happens to me now, like my son hasn't learned all the lessons that he needs to like know that like war is bad, like it's not worth fighting, and he can definitely see his son getting caught up in that and meeting a unfavorable ending.
So the show ends with a group of men throwing axes at a Christian monk on Straymoy of the Faroe Islands, and we see Floki talking to a man in the shadows, and Floki tells the man that his men are a bunch of savages and they lack grace, and the man's like, "Oh, they just hate Christians. It's fine." And we learn that the man in the shadows is named Asklad, and Floki is here to negotiate with Asklad and tells him, "You'll get 5 pounds of coins, and you can do with whatever you wish with the cargo and the ship, but only if he kills Thor's." And that is how episode 2 ends, which is some pretty intense foreshadowing.
It is. I do want to make one comment about. I love the names in the show. Ask a lad, Half Dan, Leaf. Got some funny names here. I'm enjoying them greatly. Go with the flow key.
The real question is, will Asklad actually succeed, or is Thor's going to be too powerful? And is this going to be like something that happens a couple of times?
Well, after reading the synopsis of the show,
Yeah.
I mean,
someone's gonna succeed.
someone's going to kill Thor's. It's just a
Yeah,
matter of who.
yeah. It could be Ask a lad. But I wonder if it's gonna be like a Ned Stark thing. You know how like once again Game of Thrones. At the end of season one, they kill pretty much the main character, Ned Stark, and here, are they gonna be saving that for like the like episode 12 or 13, where we kind of like, or are we gonna wait till like the very end of this season, like season like at the like, end of 26 episodes or whatever? Are they gonna wait for that and do it in the finale? I wonder.
So, what did you guys think of these first 2 episodes?
I really like these so far. I'm I'm not the biggest fan of like war stuff, so some of this is makes me a little uncomfortable. This is an area, a genre of things that I don't watch intentionally. So there's some of this war stuff that I'm not real into, but I really like the character of Thor's, and I'm very bummed knowing in the summary that he's going to kick the bucket, and I feel like it's going to happen sooner than later. So I'm very sad to be losing this guy because I am a big fan of him already. But I think the episodes are good. The animation I think is really good. I think the story is really about Thorfinn. So I have a pretty strong feeling that we're going to lose Thor's probably in episode 3 or 4, and then the rest of the show is going to be about Thorfinn growing up into a troubled, powerful, war-hungry individual who doesn't know what to do with himself or his life, and he's going to fall on the revenge track, and we'll have to see where that goes. But that's my prediction for the future. But I thought these episodes are good, and I'm curious to see where it goes, despite all the war and death and all that stuff that I don't care for.
How about you, Sean? What did you think?
I freaking loved it so far. I don't watch a lot of like especially brutal anime. Like I said, I these days I sit around and watch slice of life for the most part, and like the big shonen stuff. Sometimes, yeah, we got like Jujutsu Kaisens and stuff like that. And I guess Chainsaw Man is pretty brutal, and so is Jujutsu Kaisen. But this is a different level because it's realistic. It's not like demons biting a guy's arm off, right? It's like no, like these are people like brutally killing each other with axes and swords. And I think it's gonna be very interesting to watch. What drives this for me, number one, the characters are really cool so far. I like what they're doing with them. If the characters end up as kind of like deep and interesting, if it stays on this level, then I'm very much looking forward to this series. But I will say that I think it's really cool because I have been to Iceland twice, and so it's just like really fun seeing this perspective from Iceland. So yeah, it's really cool like seeing a foreign country I've been to that isn't Japan. You know, like be. Oh, and a Japanese take on Vikings is very interesting to me as well. I don't know. I just love it. I'm all in. Let's do it.
I can already tell I'm going to love this show. Like, we're only 2 episodes in, and I'm already hooked. Trigun and Chainsaw Man took a couple episodes for me to really get my claws into, and I'm already like, I'm loving the show right off the get go. Like, I want more. Like, I wish we were watching more than 2 episodes at a time with this show. And both episodes had incredible opening sequences. Like, big fan of both opening sequences of these 2 episodes. And then I'm just a huge fan of Viking stuff, anyways. So this is definitely up my alley. Like, I loved the new God of War games. That it's like, all right, like that had the Viking theme to it. Like you had talks of Odin. Like I don't think we're gonna get an overt a lot of the Norse gods. Like obviously we're not gonna see them, but they're gonna be talked about. And I just like the whole Norse mythology stuff. I really enjoy. And all I know is Thorfinn is 6 right now. He is going to be a ridiculously powerful character in this show, isn't he?
I was thinking the same thing. I think he's going to be even stronger than Thor's by the end of this thing.
That's a real good possibility.
And now it is time for the waifu of the week. Turtle, who did you pick this week and why?
I feel like there aren't too many options to pick so far, but for me, hands down, it was Thor's. This is a guy who has grown up doing nothing but living the Viking life of just fighting and has become super, super strong, relied upon by his peers. And he reaches the point where he is tired of just killing people for no reason, to where he flees, he finds a wife, starts a family, and he is anti-violence. He doesn't want to fight. He's trying to teach his son in episode 2 that violence is not always the answer, and there are no enemies. You have no enemies. And I just thought Thor's is a really cool character, and I appreciate the anti-violence sentiment in a show about Vikings who are defined by violence. So he's sort of like this outlier, and I really appreciate it. I think he's a great dude. I'm gonna be sad to lose him probably next episode.
Sean, who do you pick and why?
I didn't want to. I mean, let's face it, it probably should be Thor's, but I for waifu of the week, I wanted to go with Leaf. Leif Erikson. Not only is he an actual historical figure, um, he's the one who brings tidings of his travels to Vinland, or North America, I guess. So I don't know. I mean, you think about what this guy has accomplished, discovering a new continent, right? And you're like, dang, this guy's story is already more impressive than anyone in this show's story. As an explorer. So it's very interesting. I have a feeling that may change if we find out more truths about Leif and his interactions with the natives. I don't know too much about his interactions with the natives in real history, and I guess I'm gonna kind of avoid it, so I can see how things play out in this show, I guess. But I'm not so sure I should be using anime as my actual historical reference to events like this. But hey, give me my comedic relief. So thanks, Leif.
And I am going Thor.
Surprise, surprise.
I meant Thor's, not Thorkel or Thorfinn. Just had to throw a Thor quick comedy bit in there.
All the Thors.
It's like
Actually, all three Thors are my choice this week.
Well,
Thorkel for just standing on the boat and waking Thor's out of his dream.
You could just pick regular Thor, the god. You're like, well, without the god, we wouldn't get these cool names of 3 characters.
Well, I'll go Thor's. He's the low-hanging fruit this week, but I mean, he went from this badass Viking to realizing I'm tired of killing or trying. I'm tired of the life of kill or be killed. I just want to settle down. Want to have a family. Like, I'm done with that life. And then he becomes a village leader, and everyone respects him. Even rivals respect him. That they won't attack him without cause. And really, honestly, the big part was just this speech with Thorfinn.
But he is a terrible businessman.
Oh, absolutely. And even his daughter Yova's like, "Oh, Dad, why can't you just be normal? And why can't you negotiate smartly?"
We just like characters who care about other people.
Yep. Thank you all for joining us this week as we watch Vinland Saga. We hope you join us next week for episode 16 of the Anime Banter podcast, where we will watch episodes 3 and 4 of Vinland Saga. Please give us a 5-star review on all platforms that allow reviews. If you are listening on YouTube, please like the video, hit the notification bell, and leave a comment. Turtle, do you have anything you would like to plug?
As always, you can find me on my YouTube channel, RPG Treasure Trove, where a friend and I will sit down couch co-op style and play through an RPG game. Currently, as this recording is happening, I'm playing through Pokemon Y with my brother from Severe Streaming, so feel free to check us out. Thumbs up, comment, subscribe. If you want to chat with me, leave a comment on the video, and I'll try to respond as soon as I can.
Sean, do you have anything you would like to plug?
Yeah, come visit the Demon Files booth at Techo. It's going to be a good time.
And like we said last week, the plan is for the 3 of us to be at Techo on Saturday. That would be, the 21st, I believe? The 22nd? The 22nd. So the 3 of us plan on being at Techo at the Demon Files booth on Saturday, July 22nd. And if you don't see us at the booth, we'll probably be walking around the vendor hall, and we'll be wearing Anime Banter podcast t-shirts.
Come check us out. Come say hi.
The Anime Banter podcast can be found on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Thank you all for joining, and we will talk to you next week.